Creepy message. All right, well, welcome to the Ceramic Community Call. We have a bunch of exciting updates to share, some work that's in progress, and we would love some feedback on Graven if you have it. And yeah, there's a bunch of things to talk about. So maybe we'll kick off by sort of going around the table and seeing if there are particular things that you want to discuss. Maybe Spencer, we'll start with you. You're muted.
You're muted. Thank you. I guess, most exciting things are sort of mainnet launch updates and things around that. On the protocol side, we've been doing a lot of work on performance improvements. Mohsen, who's not on this call, has been working a lot on cleaning up some of our internal code and some inefficiencies in our code paths where we make a lot more calls to IPFS than are strictly needed. So hopefully as that work comes together, we'll have some improved performance behaviors from the ceramic nodes, which will be exciting. And then I think another thing that might be interesting to talk about, we've been having some conversations internally about the right API, developer-facing APIs for things like subscribing to updates on a particular stream. Maybe we can see if there's anyone in the community who has any opinions. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Zach, Paul.
Not much on my side, mostly continuing a bit on self-ID. So with the integration of Twitter and GitHub verifications that are now being tested, and hopefully should get to the main release sometimes next week or the week after.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I think there's some stuff that we'd want to share about the future direction of self-ID and how we plan to support that going forward. Zach, what about you?
Yep. Yeah, just quick updates on 3D Connect. Yeah, a lot of that's all work in progress, and we're trying to collect as much feedback as we can now that's kind of out there, especially on the modals, UI, and everything. And yeah, we also have some more plans there that we might share as well. But this week we just acted on the easier feedback, so we did change a little bit of the messaging in it. There was a bug where it was showing the modals basically every time you connected, and that's supposed to be once in the first app or when it's not stored locally. So you should only see that once, and then it won't pop up. Also merge some modals just so there's less modals overall, so some of those flows will look quicker. And yeah, that was released a few days ago. So but yeah, we're still actively making improvements there.
Sounds good. Val?
Yeah, so I actually don't remember if in our last call we talked about the node fetch changes that got merged. I think at that point they hadn't yet been merged, but we were like awaiting. So we were seeing some connectivity issues amongst our ceramic nodes, and it was really amongst the IPFS nodes trying to reach each other, and specifically around PubSub. So we put a lot of patches in place to like make sure that they stay well connected. But there was a bug in node fetch that came from node fetch and kind of like went through to the IPFS layer. And they finally merged a fix for that. So that gave us a lot more like visibility into what was happening with our PubSub connections. So now we have like a very clear kind of path for handling any drop connections and like fixing it quickly. So yeah, on that front, like things are stable. We've seen our nodes be pretty stable, which is good. And I guess the only other thing to like call out is now that 1559, the EIP has been merged into Ropsten, and I guess now Gorilla, but we're running Ropsten on Clay. And so we are like monitoring that to see if there's any like crazy behavior that happens on Clay during this time when people are testing their protocols against the new changes. So far things look okay, but just something to be aware of that we'll keep staying on top of that and let people know if we see any issues there related to Ropsten.
Thanks, Val. Danny, anything from you?
No, there's now a Ceramic Explorer tiles live on mainnet, which is exciting to watch the streams as they are created and updated. If we have time, we can talk about maybe some of the stuff that's coming next week, around launching a little more publicly next month, around potentially a hackathon. But we can get to that if we have time later.
Thank you. Sergey, anything in addition to what Spencer said?
Well, no. Well, he shared the most important pieces of information with regards to subscription API.
Okay, cool.
Well, yeah.
One other thing I forgot to mention, just that we're working on, is just changes to the Ceramic Anchor service that will make it possible to run more than one per network. Right now, there's only one anchor service for the whole Ceramic mainnet, and that's because, like, the Ceramic anchors, if there were to be more than one, they don't communicate very well or coordinate very well, and they could wind up kind of anchoring different branches of history, which, like, the system would eventually converge and be fine, but it would be unideal. It would potentially cause the system to throw out some commits that it could have kept alive. So we've been reluctant to have more than one anchor service running at a time until that got fixed, so that we would make sure that we're always anchoring kind of the best version of the stream that is available to be anchored. So we're working on that now, and that should allow us to, that's one of the last big pieces on being able to really decentralize mainnet more fully and allow more people to run their own nodes and to run their own anchor services, and get much closer to the real vision of a fully decentralized network. So that's one of the other things that the team is working on.
Cool. Mohsin, anything in, I know you probably joined after Spencer had gone initially, but anything in addition that you want to just put on the agenda to discuss today?
Nothing specific. I don't know if Spencer already mentioned that we're working on significant performance enhancements. That, yeah, so that's the only thing I wanted to add. Hopefully that makes a significant difference to the current level of performance.
Sounds good. Graven and or Ellie, have anything top of mind that you want to share or discuss this call?
I was just going to say, it's been working great on our end since mainnet launch. Not only just been great getting more people interested in what we're doing, so thanks. But it's been really smooth, like application wise. So just super psyched about that. I've noticed some of the changes with 3ID. We'll look forward to the anchoring. So just thanks, keep it up.
Yeah, I know of Ceramic, like, just generally, but also through Val, and I've just been like following along for a while and waiting for, I mean, is mainnet launched yet, or like publicly, or no?
So mainnet has been
Secretly?
running, yeah, not secretly, but not widely publicized,
Mhm.
and not fully openly, I guess you could say. So right now, mainnet nodes are restricted to sort of those on a trusted list.
Mhm.
And as Spencer said, as we like make the improvements to things like the anchor service and some underlying networking capabilities with IPFS, which they, I think, are releasing in the next couple of weeks, then we should be able to more quickly move towards a fully open mainnet where anyone can run nodes. So right now it's like, if you want to get started building, Clay testnet's fully open.
Mhm.
And then if you want to migrate to mainnet, you just let us know basically by filling out a form, and then we can prioritize getting you set up on mainnet if you need to do that in the near term.
That's cool. But yeah, I guess like I've just been, I've done like the tutorials like on the docs page and like the quick start and everything, and I think Ceramic is like going to be useful in like various projects that I want to work on. I just haven't like integrated with it yet. Mostly because like I sort of try to avoid. I mean, like it's kind of like if you use every single thing that's like in beta or a testnet thing, then you'll never. There's so many that never like make it, and I believe that you all will make it to like be like publicly available. But it's just like kind of a sort of policy I have is to like follow the early tech, but not necessarily like be a super early adopter. But I'm excited for like I think the way that you all are thinking about the new web and web3 and stuff is like definitely like in line with how I think about it. So yeah, I'm just kind of like waiting / getting excited. There's some projects that I have coming up that hopefully could leverage ceramics. So yeah, maybe I'll like sign up for the early launch program thing just because yeah, I mean, if Val's working on it, then I'm sure it's good. So
That's for sure. Well, thanks for dropping by the call. And let us know as you're like poking around or if you have any feedback or requirements. But yeah, I mean, whenever you're ready to go, we can help get you set up there.
yeah, cool. It'd just be fun if I could just like hack on some stuff and then like know that if I make something useful, I could like be on the mainnet like when I needed to. That yeah.
Yeah, totally. I would recommend just like build out the full integration on the Clay testnet and then switching to mainnet is as simple as like changing a single node URL.
Okay, cool.
Graven just did this. So Graven, I don't know if you have anything to add about how it was going from Clay to mainnet.
Yeah, I think we were probably the first or one of the first, and it was as easy as Michael said. So just did it in the morning and good to go, and have been running it since.
Okay, cool. That's encouraging.
Yeah, so I guess on our side too, we are excited to welcome Elizabeth to the team. She joined us on Monday. And yeah, Elizabeth, do you want to give an intro or share a bit about how you want to contribute to the ceramic ecosystem in $3?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways I want to contribute to the ceramic ecosystem. Kind of my focus right now, or not my focus, I shouldn't say that because I've been here for 5 days, is getting up to speed on all the different Web3 concepts because I'm coming from a fairly traditional background. One of the things that I do like to think I bring to the table is a lot of experience in a bunch of different industries with all sorts of different use cases and all sorts of different complexities that are pretty unique to that industry itself. So with that in mind, I'm coming at this to make it so that those industries aren't locked to the old Web 2 standards and the structure of it. But yeah, that's the quick and dirty because I don't know much more what to say at this point. But happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on board. All right, so I guess we can start running through the list of things. I mean, I think the things that require the most collaboration or discussion, like Graven and Ellie, I guess would probably be the API or mechanism by which you could subscribe to updates on a stream. And also there's some things that we can share about the improvements we're prioritizing or considering to prioritize for 3ID Connect. So Graven, I know you guys are using it, so it'd be good just to get a sense of what you think, and if there's anything that's not included that you would include or things you think we can do without. So Spencer, maybe do you want to, Spencer or Sergey, do either of you want to just like provide context to the decisions we're considering?
Yeah, I guess I can start. I'm not totally sure this venue is going to be the best for this level of detailed API discussion, but we can at least introduce the problem, and then maybe, you know, follow up further on GitHub if people have, you know, specific opinions. But right now, you know, there exists right now, you can subscribe to a stream. So right now, when you load a stream from Ceramic, the content of the stream is fixed to the version at the moment in time that you loaded it. So like when you load it, you get an object that you lives in your application, and you can, you know, access its content, its metadata, whatever information about its current state. But if in the meantime on some other node on the network, someone updates that stream, the object that you have in your code will not change by default. If you were to load it again, you would get a new version. But then we have a few different ways to sort of handle new updates that are coming into the system. One is there's an explicit sync method that you can call, which will just, as a sort of one-time deal, sync it up to the current state from the network if there's been any changes, and then still leave you with this sort of static image object, but up, you know, brought forward to whatever the current state is if anything has changed. You can also call a .subscribe method with no arguments, which will just make it so that then that node, that handle starts polling and receiving updates from the network and updating its internal state to the new state of the object as updates come in. There's a third API, which is I think the one that we're most interested in thinking about, which is I want to get a notification, not just have the object state change out from under it and be the most up to date, but I want to actively have my application receive a notification when the stream is updated and have my application be able to take some action every time there's an update to the stream. This is possible right now because stream objects are Rxjs observables. So like from the React system, they're an observable that has a whole bunch of APIs for, as part of the Rxjs machinery, for how you subscribe to objects and get a callback basically every time there's an update. But the observable, it's an observable of a stream state. Stream state is a fairly low level internal data structure that describes the actual underlying state, but it's hard to use because like if there's an update that hasn't been anchored, then you have to get the content from state.next.content. But if there hasn't been an update pending since the last anchor, then you get it from state.content, right? Like there's all these different things you kind of need to know about the internal structure that like the stream API, when you have like a tile document, we abstract that. You just do tile document.content and it gives you the right thing. And so like we have these like higher level APIs that are what the idea was how you would interact with the system was through these, the stream type APIs. You have Cape 10 link, you have tile document that present much more developer friendly APIs. The stream state object is pretty low level. It's kind of designed for mostly it is an internal data structure. And so the fact that it's kind of leaked to the application right now, I kind of feel like is almost a bug. I mean, it's not really a bug, but it's a, you know, we're exposing some fairly low level structures. And so I'd like to fix that and present a more user friendly API for how you subscribe to updates and get new versions in with the same sort of APIs that, you know, are better suited for developers to consume. And then what exactly that looks like is, I think, where there's still some questions. And I think there's maybe a few possibilities as to how exactly that works. Sergey, was that a good summary of sort of the state? And then maybe you want to jump in with some of the things we're considering?
Yep, that was really great overview. The major problem is that there is a kind of contrast between the API for the streams and the lower level API of stream state. So we have actually one consideration. The intent is to improve the developer experience and remove that contrast between the APIs. But the way we could go is kind of constrained. We have to maintain some sort of composability that's given by Rxjs. And we would really like to maintain that. My personal opinion is that Rxjs, although being kind of not widely known technology, and even whole reactive programming is kind of new, it's really great. So one option that we're considering is exposing some sort of rich state API that's only read-only. So whenever you have a stream, you could do something like stream dot, well, that's optional part, not optional, like questionable part, dot live or dot snap, or maybe there is a better name here. And then we do dot subscribe, and that subscribe thing calls invokes a callback that's your callback with a rich object that allows you to, well, avoid lower level queries to the actual stream state. This way, we maintain the same composability of Rxjs. We have all the Rxjs power with regards to operators and their ecosystem, like from developer experience perspective. And we gather you as a developer higher level, like really semantically meaningful API. So instead of querying that .next, .content, whatever, you just do something like .did, and well, it automatically gets your DID for that Cape 10 link, for example. So with this regard, it's really a question to the community if Rxjs and or reactive programming paradigm is something new and that we should avoid from exposing, or maybe you're comfortable with it and or would like to dig deeper and, well, kind of use some Rxjs power. Because maybe you strictly prefer event-based, well, I don't know, event-based programming in your application, or you're totally fine to piping, mapping, debouncing all the observables. So please, guys.
Mm-hmm. So clarifying question, Sergey, like if we go with this more Rxjs route, and someone wants to write ceramic in a new language, does that like change things significantly, or is that more flexible?
It's flexible. First, Rxjs is part of Reactive-X suite of libraries that's available for Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, Scala, some sense, and like a lot of other languages. So that shouldn't be a problem. Reactive programming paradigm is very extensively used, well, in the ecosystem. It might be not really well, widely known, but it's considered to be really powerful. And well, I personally have a few books on that topic. So whenever, well, someone decides to write a new new implementation of ceramic, be it client or the full node, it wouldn't be a problem because the pattern it supports is very widely known.
Yeah, and I also feel like we're not beholden to identical developer APIs across implementations. I think there's some value in keeping the APIs, looking fairly similar across languages, just because it increases familiarity for the developer. Like if tile document dot create is what I'm going to do in any language. Like I know what to look for. But that said, there is also the advantage of doing things in the more like language native way. So like I know, for example, Rust has a very sophisticated, stream system that's native to the language. Like I noticed Rxjs does not have a Rust implementation, and that kind of makes sense to me. It's not surprising because I feel like, why would you need it? Rust has this functionality native to the language. So I feel like if we were to build a ceramic implementation in Rust, we would use Rust's native stream features rather than trying to recreate, trying to port over Rxjs. But so it would be a little bit different. It would not be exactly the same syntax, but it would be fairly roughly analogous and pretty easy to map between. And I think that would be fine. I don't think anything decision we make here really constrains us in what we do in other languages.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, Graven, I saw you were off mute.
Yeah, I was basically going to say, I don't think I'm qualified to have an opinion on a lot of this stuff, but I definitely, Spencer, did you say there's already some GitHub discussion going on? Or
there isn't, but we should start one.
Okay.
In Notion so far, in Discord, actually, really just for us so far, but we will need to start, starting an actual project for this and being able to have. I think this is something that we are, as a team, still figuring out how best to do. Like we do some of our internal design discussions on our Notion, which sometimes is not open. And I think we'd like to be doing more of these design discussions in the open where the community can get involved. But figuring out exactly the right format and structure for that. I think GitHub is, the obvious place for some of this stuff for sure. Pushing more stuff there. So I think we will try to make a project or at least a ticket where we can start having some discussion about it.
Yeah, I'll flag it to Cody and Vishal on our end. And as it gets into a place where it's open and that their opinions can be pulled in, we'll make sure to do that and see where it goes.
Yeah, I see it kind of as a tension between like, we could do something really simple that does not depend on Rxjs, that just exposes some sort of function you call that you just give it a callback, and we'll just call that callback and call it a day. And the advantage of that is it's simple, it's easy to understand, it doesn't require any external dependencies. The downside is the flip side, the advantages of using the Rxjs machinery is it's really powerful. And it's a standard, it's used in a lot of different applications. Some developers are already familiar with it. And it's much more composable, and it's much easier just to tie together strings of operations, and it's really quite flexible and quite powerful. But the downside is that you have to learn it. Like if you aren't already familiar with it because you haven't already worked in an Rxjs system, then there's maybe a little bit higher learning curve to get familiar with it to start with. But I feel like that's kind of the tension.
Thanks. Elizabeth, have you ever worked with Rxjs or have any thoughts here? I know that you're just getting up to speed on ceramic generally, but I think the trade-off consideration set here is a bit more general than specific to ceramic.
So I haven't actually delved into anything Rxjs specific, but I think that the best approach is going to be one that's more tailored to our uses. So instead of trying to reuse an old package, not an old package, but a package, what I can see a lot of developers doing is trying to use that package how they would in any other project. And with that, it's going to come with its own kind of assumptions and bloat. That's my initial thought. I'm still getting up to speed, and to be perfectly honest, I've had a headache since day one, and it hasn't gone away yet. Too much new information. So I'm still just trying to process everything.
Cool. Ellie, do you have any thoughts? It's also cool to say no about this.
I don't have enough of an educated opinion, so
All
no.
right.
But it's interesting stuff. I feel like figuring out a good way that's user friendly to stream things is always difficult, just because most developers aren't used to like sort of the streaming, like real-time programming, you know, especially like people who are building like front end stuff.
Yep, that's good input. All right, Spencer, Sergey, you guys all right if we move on? Cool. Well, maybe this is something a bit more visual and approachable. So I'll share right now sort of like a improvement document, Graven and Ellie, I guess, for how we can make 3ID Connect better. So this is just like, pull it up. All right. Yeah, so there's a lot here, but I think Graven, like the main things to engage with here are just like the visual, because it kind of summarizes a lot of the user stories that we've written below. But I guess in summary, like we have gotten some feedback from various projects that, you know, 3ID Connect is the easiest way to add a 3ID DID provider and like host it and have users interact with Ceramic using a blockchain wallet. But there's, you know, it was sort of intentionally under specified and developed because we just wanted to get it out and then we'd make improvements. Well, now it's time that we need to start making improvements. And so some of the things we've heard have been like, it needs to feel more trustworthy in not so many words or in many more words. Like this feels scary for my users to click, or, you know, how can I customize it more to feel like my application? You know, how can users just know which DID they're using, you know, and just like, how can they have more transparency into the permissions that they're giving any given application? And so sort of, we tried to just like take all of this and distill it down into user stories. But I mean, do you have any immediate reactions to if we went in this direction? Do you be happier or less happy? And do you have any feedback on things that would make this next iteration of the 3ID Connect modal interface better?
Yeah, so even this looks like what Cody and I described to each other when we originally were like, hey, like 3ID Connect, it's a scary little sentence there. Want your personal data or whatever it used to say. And talked about it in context of like app permissions, like on an iPhone, like when you're downloading something. And that's what this looks like. I do think like the fine grained tuned, like telling them what you're going to have is, or what you're accessing, like goes a super long way. Just so that granularity. I like the other aspects of getting a little more visual, instant feedback. No one, I mean, you can recognize your own wallet, but I don't recognize my DID yet by a string of characters. So getting some visual feedback on that is great too.
Cool. We've also thought about like developer customization options too. So being able to set a hex color for your app, which you see here is like, you know, the boardroom purple. Being able to, you know, change the position of the modal on the screen. Like right now it's the top right, it kind of slides in, but, you know, maybe defaulting to the center, and you can, you know, move it to the top right if you want, or choosing, you know, like a background overlay to your app to focus users on this or not, and transparent, making that more transparent or not. So like, there's a lot of just things that we want to, that we're exploring right now to just, you know, make it more seamlessly fit into and feel like the flow of any given application. So I don't know if you, like, if you're thinking about this in the context of GeoWeb, you know, what would be your ideal for 3ID Connect? Like what, if you, you know, even aside from what's shown here, like you guys said you've already had discussions about this. So like, what would be your optimal scenario?
Yeah, how we're using it right now is pretty light. We're not concerned about all the other bells and whistles that you can do with IDX and 3ID Connect. We just kind of wanted just a DID there to manage our stream documents on there. So I don't know if I have any immediate thoughts on like how, as we would add additional integrations, what the impact of the visual looks like for us. I could just start to talk a little bit and we'll see what happens. As like I said, right now we just wanted to be able to manage the documents, but identity itself for the GeoWeb starts to get interesting as we look at like reputations, as we look at potentially like tax breaks for physical landowners. And so like if they can validate that they are the physical landowner. So this is all just about 3ID Connect, right? Just on the intake. The additional ways, I guess, do we kick everyone over to like a different website to manage their profile, or does it start to be like a modal or something that can be overlaid on the GeoWeb, so they're still there, but we're not replicating a whole new profile system, right? A profile interface. So maybe there's something there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, what's not here and sort of what we said is like, it could be in scope for 3ID Connect, but it could also not be. And that's a decision that I think we'll need to gather more feedback from the community. But like, yeah, if, we could have another modal that, has that you have to draw, connect to some UI component in your app. And when a user clicks it, they can get like, a profile edit thing, right? So you don't have to send them to self ID or do anything. So, I mean, we could, right now we tried to keep like this iteration of improvements based on like permissions and DID creation and like authentication, but you can easily imagine that the same system handles like your basic profile stuff in your app. But yeah, that would be like iteration 2, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's iteration 2 for us too, so we have a little bit of time to talk and explore it. But yeah, we've gone down the road to like, obviously, like we're trying not to recreate a whole bunch of stuff that exists elsewhere. I think that's like the ethos of Web3 is not recreating every single component yourself. So
yeah, and I mean, the thing that we honestly, as 3Box Labs, like want to be cognizant of is not biting off more than we can maintain, because like that's always the trade-off. It's like easy to make something, harder to like maintain it and have someone own it and continue to improve it over time. Like it's easy to say like, okay, we're going to do an iteration, do it, like push it out and then move on to other things and come back to it like 6 months later and be like, okay, how do we make it better? But when people really depend on something, it's like needs constant attention. So, we just want to make sure that we're scoping that appropriately for just like how much effort we can give it. So
yeah, I hear you. And it's really easy for us to say, have someone else do it for us. So
yeah. Of course, sold to you. Ellie, any immediate reactions? I don't know if you've used Ceramic or 3ID Connect before, but as a user potentially of an app, how would you feel if you saw this and you needed to click it to use Ceramic?
Yeah, I mean, my thought is like customizing like the colors is probably good, but I think it's like interesting how like, other like products like this have like shifted back and forth between like letting it be like white labeled, but also like going back to like, it's like clearly like by like a trusted, source. Like for example, Plaid, the thing where you connect your bank account started where it was white labeled and like, you didn't necessarily know it was plaid, but they've like, over time realized that they could actually increase the trust by like making it clear it was like powered by plaid. So I think potentially having some like branding might be a good idea of like, the maker of this, the maintainer, sort of like it could link out to essentially like a page that's like, this is why this is like trusted. So obviously like a different approach, but I think if there's going to be a widget that's like built by someone else and maintained, like I think that's an opportunity like increase trust and then also build like sort of brand brand equity like with like the consumers who are using this. Just in the same way that like your MetaMask, you kind of are familiar with the interface and everything. So yeah, that's my thought.
Great feedback. Yeah, I think that this is always something we've struggled with, and we get feedback on both sides. I think I lean towards the side that you're on right now, of like, if you ask developers in a vacuum, like, do you want our brand on this thing that shows up in your app? They're like, no. But then if you're like, well, your users told us when they see our brand, they trust it and it makes them want to use it more, then they're like, okay. Or it sort of becomes so widely used that it's a standard. And if it doesn't appear there, then it's like, what is this other thing? I definitely hear you on that. That's probably something I'll try to build into the next version of this mockup, is just like, what does it look like? If there is some...
It's obviously difficult. I mean, you just think about all like the different like sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook. Like a lot of them do like have you like go to a different page and then like bring you back and everything. But obviously like that's not as convenient. But I think just like some way to like kind of like the sites that are like, verify that like you're on the right URL. But I think some way, just like little things that would improve the trust. And that's just like my thoughts.
Cool. Well, thanks for the feedback. This is already helpful. So I think definitely we can like add a couple stories of like trust indicators on it. But yeah, so this is where we're going. I think it'll hopefully be a lot better and a more trustworthy experience than just kind of like a black and white thing that slides in from the side of your screen and doesn't feel super polished. Yeah, this should be better. Okay, all right, so what else did we not cover? I guess Paul and Zach, that's covers some of the 3ID Connect work. I guess we have some more information than we did yesterday, which is good. I forget what else was on the list. Speak up if you mentioned something in the beginning and we haven't gotten to it yet. Danny, you want to like demo tiles or talk about the plan for next week?
Yeah, I'll talk about what's coming. So next week someone asked earlier if like, is this live? Is it not live? So it's like quietly live. Next week we're going to share more publicly that Ceramic mainnet early launch program is live and we'll be rolling out more. So Tuesday of next week will be that announcement. I think we'll probably have a little bit of stuff going on around it. So Twitter Space with some projects that have been building on Ceramic, particularly for identity, talking about just like what it enables for them. So Greg would love to have you on that if you want to join, and a few others who are coming soon. So that's next week, which is already July, which is crazy. Later in July, we will be date TBD, hopefully by the end of today, maybe. We'll have a Ceramic hackathon, virtual, probably a week or two long, combination of building stuff on Ceramic, with Ceramic, and for Ceramic. So there's a whole bunch of ideas that we think would be cool demos or toolings, but then also a whole bunch of projects we've heard people want kind of an excuse to play around with. And so more info coming on that. But now that we're live, really want to get more people building. We did ETH Denver a couple months ago and some other online ones after that. And it's always pretty incredible to see what people are building. So more info there. And then, yeah, just there's dozens of projects that will be going live. It's always hard to predict exactly when, but over the next month and a half, 2 months or so, doing all sorts of different things, particularly using IDX in different ways, and some cool patterns emerging for some really common things in the Ethereum space. And so we'll be trying to keep up writing about those and sharing them to try to make discovery and just common patterns really clear to people. So more coming on all of that. I feel like I'm missing something, but there's always next community call.
Well, someone in the community has been working on the did NFT resolver, which I think we all can't wait for. But yeah, I think there's Sergey, and wasn't there some discussion about and Spencer, like how to manage the endpoint, like the graph dependency, or how to do some of those things? Is that like in a coherent enough thought to share out at all, or should we wait?
Well, better wait till the final decision is made, but as a preliminary kind of preview of what's coming, it seems that NFT did, after some internal changes, have to be included into the upstream ceramic node, so that it's widely available, because it's good no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, exciting things coming.
But one last thing I could say is, for anybody that's watching this later, we're here. We're going to be hiring a bunch of roles coming soon. So lots of engineering roles, product roles, but because it's a community call, also a community role, probably community lead. So that's not up yet. But with all of these things coming in the community, we want to do more and more to foster that, help new community members feel immediately welcomed and oriented, and keep growing the cross-pollination between different projects and people in the community. So if anybody's interested, reach out to me. If you know people who might be great, ping them. Feel free to put us in touch.
There you have it. All right. Thanks everyone for joining the call. We'll see you on Discord, and until next time.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. See ya.
Later on.